Al-Fawaid, the benefits. Chapter 2. The beginning of creation, resurrection, and the principles of monotheism mentioned in the Quran, Chapter 50, Qaf. This chapter mentions many principles of faith that are sufficient for us, and that serve us instead of the speech and opinions of people, and their reasoning. It contains information about the beginning of creation, resurrection, monotheism, prophethood, belief in angels, division of people into miserable conditions and happy ones. It also includes the attributes of Allah, God, and talks about Allah, God, in a way that depicts him as being free from all defects and faults. God also mentions the two resurrections and the two worlds. The bigger world is the hereafter and the smaller world is this worldly life. He mentions the creation of mankind, death, and resurrection, and his state both in death and on the day of resurrection. Allah, God, knows all that the servant does, even what he conceals within himself. God appoints guardian angels that record every word that is uttered. He will come on the day of resurrection accompanied by an angel to drive him and an angel to bear witness. When the angel drives him along, he will say what Allah, God, says.
الذي جعل مع الله إلها آخر فألقياه في العذاب الشديد.
And his companion, the angel, will say, "This record is what is with me, prepared." Chapter 50, Qaf. Verse 23. Which means, here is this record, ready with me. Which means, O God, here is what you ordered me to bring. Then it will be said when he is brought to Allah, God, what Allah says in the Quran.
God will say, "Throw into hell every obstinate, ungrateful, stubborn, disbeliever." Chapter 50, Qaf. Verse 24.
Which means, it's an order from Allah, God, to the two angels, both of you throw into hell, every stubborn disbeliever, in the oneness of Allah, God, and in his messengers, etc. Chapter Qaf, 50, verse 24. This is what is usually done when a criminal is brought into the presence of the king. It would be said, "This is so and so. I have brought him." And the king would say, "Take him to jail. Punish him with what he deserves."
The resurrection is for the body itself. This chapter clearly shows that Allah, God, the Exalted, returns the same body that had obeyed or disobeyed him in life, in order to reward or punish it, just like he rewards the soul itself which believes in him, and punishes the one which disbelieves in him. That does not mean that Allah, God, the Exalted, creates another soul, which will be rewarded or punished, as some people say. Such people do not understand the nature of the resurrection, which the messengers informed mankind about. They claim that God the Exalted will create another body that is different in all aspects and that Allah will reward or punish it. They also say that the soul is simply a part of the body, so God will create another soul other than this one and a body other than this body. This belief is contrary to what the messengers taught, and what the Quran, Sunnah, and other books of Allah, God, the Exalted say. This is in fact denial of the resurrection and adopting the belief of the disbelievers. Such people find it difficult to comprehend that God the Exalted will recreate the very same body and soul that had known life. They cannot imagine how the body will become bones and dust and Allah, God, will create it again in its original form. God quotes them in the Quran as saying,
أَإِذَا مِتْنَا وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا وَعِظَامًا أَإِنَّا لَمَبْعُوثُونَ.
Which means, they said, when we are dead and have become dust and bones, shall we then verily be resurrected? Be raised again? Quran, chapter 37, verse 16.
And such people also say,
أَإِذَا مِتْنَا وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا ذَلِكَ رَجْعٌ بَعِيدٌ.
What, when we die and become dust? Will we live again? That would be a far-fetched return. An event that is extremely remote. Impossible. Quran, chapter 50. Verse 3. If what they assert is true, and another body other than the one that had known in life is rewarded or punished, this will neither be resurrection nor returning back. Indeed, it would be a new creation altogether. And the following verse would be rendered meaningless. May Allah, God, forbid. Allah says in the Quran,
قَدْ عَلِمْنَا مَا تَنقُصُ الْأَرْضُ مِنْهُمْ وَعِندَنَا كِتَابٌ حَفِيظٌ.
we know that which the earth takes of them, meaning, their dead bodies, and with us is a book preserved. Chapter 50, verse 4. Allah, God, answered the question that He the Exalted, will separate these pieces which had mixed with the earth and turned it into elements which are difficult to be separated. So Allah, God the Exalted, told mankind that He knows what the earth is taking from their flesh, bones, and hair, and just as He knows these pieces He is capable of separating, and gathering them after being separated and creating them again. He the Exalted, decides the time of resurrection by His perfect knowledge, power, and wisdom.